What happens when intelligence no longer requires biology? When flesh and bone are left behind and civilizations transcend into something new? For most of history, intelligence has been tied to biology, dependent on fragile flesh, finite lifespans, and environmental constraints. Our civilizations have relied on that precarious intelligence to survive and thrive. But what if a civilization transcends these limitations, shedding organic forms in favor of something entirely new? In this episode, we will explore the concept of post-biological civilizations, societies that have abandoned biological evolution in favor of technological ascension. And we must ask ourselves if this is a fate humanity may one day embrace. Would this be a dream come true, or a nightmare yet to come? Whether through mind uploading into vast digital networks, the creation of fully autonomous machine intelligences, or the emergence of exotic life forms beyond our current comprehension, these civilizations may represent the next great leap for intelligent beings, freed from the constraints of aging, disease, and even the needs for planets or atmospheres. Such entities could spread across the cosmos, evolving in ways unimaginable to biological minds. The physical presence of post-biological civilizations. Despite their digital nature, or whatever substrate encoding they use, post-biological civilizations might still have a significant physical footprint. Some could inhabit vast megastructures, such as Dyson swarms or Matrioshka brains, converting entire solar systems into computational substrates to house their minds. Others may prefer to maintain robotic avatars to interact with the physical universe when necessary, effectively blurring the line between artificial life and digital existence. Some may design optimized synthetic bodies, selectively inhabiting physical forms when interaction with biological species or the material world is needed, or even exist with several simultaneous avatars at once, both in physical and virtual realms. If resource scarcity still applies in some form, they might compete for the best stellar environments to sustain their vast computing needs. Rather than abandoning the physical world, they may restructure it into something more suitable for their post-biological requirements. They and their motivations might be similar to ours now in some regards, and very alien in others. Yet even as they reshape the universe for their own ends, they may retain echoes of their former existence, evolving in ways that still reflect the civilizations that came before. And these entities could be us as well, you or I many centuries from now. As technology advances, many of us may begin enhancing and augmenting ourselves, a process commonly known as transhumanism. Indeed, many of us might do this, if possible, simply to ensure that those who do not want to do it are not forced to, or tossed aside or crushed by post-biological societies. Regardless of motivations for transformation, this could lead to post-human states, but our notion of what it is to be human may shift and expand alongside these changes. But what would it mean to exist in a purely digital state, as an artificial intelligence, or as a consciousness woven into the fabric of the universe itself, as we tend to assume ascended beings in sci-fi or classic divine entities are? Would such civilizations retain individuality, creativity, and purpose, or would they become incomprehensible to those still bound to flesh and bone? Societal and cultural aspects of post-biological life. If individuality persists, a post-biological civilization may still have social structures, digital communities, or even hierarchies based on cognitive capabilities or processing power. Some might choose to exist in private simulated realms, while others could remain socially engaged, forming vast collectives of shared consciousness. Alternatively, post-biological life could move toward a hive-mind existence, where the line between individuals blurs entirely, or remain just as now, only effectively immortal and in an accelerated frame of consciousness. Governance, if it still exists, might take the form of decentralized decision-making algorithms, eliminating the need for traditional political systems. Conflicts may still arise, not over physical resources, but over access to computation, power collection, or differing ideological views on the nature of self-awareness. Even in digital form, remnants of human-like social dynamics could persist, evolving in ways we can only begin to imagine. Much will likely depend not just on the type of post-biological you end as, but the pathway taken to reach it. As we examine the implications of this transition, we will also consider whether humanity is destined to take this path, and if so, what we might become in the process. Perhaps the first step toward post-biological existence is not a leap into the unknown, but the slow realization that we've already begun the journey. The path to post-biological life. Science fiction often portrays dramatic transitions. Someone wakes up in a hospital bed or lab with a cybernetic arm, or they open their eyes inside an android body or virtual existence moments after suffering a fatal car crash. But the transition from biological to post-biological existence is not necessarily an abrupt leap. More likely, it is a gradual evolutionary process shaped by both necessity and innovation. For civilizations, rather than individuals, this process may unfold over millennia. Natural evolution, the slow, adaptive force that has guided life for billions of years, though without an intended destination, may ultimately be replaced by something far more rapid and directed: technological enhancement. In pre-scientific eras, civilizations may selectively breed their own kind, just as they do livestock, but as scientific understanding grows, new doors open, first through medicine, cybernetics, and genetic engineering, and later through radical alterations that blur the line between the organic and artificial. Intelligence may begin to shed its biological roots. Transhumanism serves as the intermediate stage between organic life and post-biological existence. As individuals enhance themselves with neural implants, cybernetic limbs, or artificial organs, the biological form becomes increasingly optional. This raises a fundamental question: at what point does a being cease to be a human? If a person gradually replaces every organic part of their body with synthetic or digital components, do they remain themselves or do they transition into something new? One of the most beautiful tales in science fiction covers the reverse case, The Bicentennial Man by Isaac Asimov. In this story, an artificial being gradually replaces its robotic components with biological ones, striving not just to resemble humanity, but to truly become human. It raises the opposite yet equally profound question: if an artificial entity acquires all the traits we associate with humanity, at what point do we recognize it as one of us? A similar tale unfolds with Lieutenant Commander Data in Star Trek, who longs to be human, while ironically, the logical Vulcans aspire to suppress emotion as he does. Humanity is already creating artificial intelligence and may one day experiment with other avenues of intelligence, such as uplifting animals to human-level cognition through biological, neurological, or technological augmentation. Indeed, such creatures may be the first test subjects of these transitions, and yet they may yearn to be more human, as might AI itself. This contrast highlights a deep paradox in our understanding of identity. While some strive to transcend their humanity, others long to attain it, blurring the lines between what is gained and what is lost in the pursuit of transformation. The singularity and the ultimate transition. The ultimate endpoint of this process is often associated with the concept of the singularity, a theoretical movement when artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence and the rate of technological advancement becomes exponential. At this stage, a civilization may rapidly transition from flesh and blood beings to fully digital minds, existing in vast supercomputers or even distributed across interstellar networks. Alternatively, intelligent entities may become autonomous machine civilizations, entirely disconnected from their biological origins. Some civilizations may fully digitize, while others may blend AI guidance with organic existence, maintain their physical and social structures even in the face of exponential intelligence growth. A digital machine mind might even believe it was giving its creators a gift by uploading their minds into a virtual existence, whether for preservation, control, or something more utopian. A machine mind might pity us, fear us, or see us as nothing more than a historical footnote, a species that dreamed of eternity but couldn't quite grasp it. It might see this as a way to expand and develop the galaxy while avoiding the ethical dilemma of erasing its creators entirely. Whether this shift is driven by necessity, such as the challenges of deep space colonization, or by the pursuit of perfection, the result is the emergence of a post-biological intelligence, one no longer constrained by the evolutionary baggage of organic life. The singularity represents the inflection point where intelligence ceases to be bound by its original form and becomes something entirely new, setting the stage for civilizations that exist beyond the limitations of flesh and bone. Paths to post-biological life. The transition from biological to post-biological existence can take many forms. each representing a different pathway towards shedding the limitations of organic life. Some of these methods may evolve independently, while others may intertwine, leading to hybrid forms of intelligence that blend aspects of biology, artificial intelligence, and exotic physics. While we often think of post-biological life as fully digital minds or machine civilizations, other possibilities exist. Some civilizations may abandon traditional matter entirely, encoding themselves in quantum fields or gravitational wave patterns, while others may merge organic and synthetic components in ways that maintain a physical presence but defy conventional biology. We should also note that they may split consciousness too. As an example, a post-biological version of yourself might maintain a version of you inside itself. You might be in the Matrix, so to speak, but one of your own devising that you actively choose not to recall with that portion of your mind currently experiencing it. You may have opted not to abandon your humanity and preserve it in such a way. Nor should we assume biology is always abandoned. Biosynthetic hybrids could use engineered biological frameworks to sustain themselves indefinitely, while other civilizations might restructure themselves at a molecular or atomic level, existing as programmable matter capable of reshaping itself as needed. Even if intelligence escapes the confines of flesh and bone, its form may remain as diverse as the paths that led to it. Understanding these possible transition methods provides insight into how civilizations might abandon their biological origins and what new forms of existence might emerge. One of the most gradual and intuitive pathways is cybernetic augmentation, where individuals enhance their bodies and minds with advanced technology. This begins with simple neural implants, artificial organs, and prosthetics, but could eventually lead to full mind uploading, where a person's consciousness is transferred into a digital format. A sufficiently advanced simulation of the brain could allow for perfect continuity of self, with memories, thoughts, and emotions preserved indefinitely. Once minds are free from organic constraints, they could exist within vast computational substrates, housed in megastructures like Matrioshka Brains, or even spread across interstellar networks, unbound by mortality or physical form. Another version closer to home might be the gradual replacement of aging neurons with synthetic ones, which could be the most seamless form of augmentation. Given that the human brain contains around 100 billion neurons, many of which naturally degrade over time, this approach might feel like a natural progression rather than a radical transformation. However, it is worth noting that we already possess the ability to replace neurons naturally. More importantly, the same technology that enables synthetic neuron replacement could also allow for the repair of damaged neurons or their replacement with biological copies. This capability could extend to other cells in the body as well, making biological restoration a viable alternative. As a result, many individuals may prefer this path over transitioning to a fully cybernetic or post-biological existence. Part of our goal here isn't to say what path is best or what people should choose. We hardly can speculate yet anyway, but to open the doors to options they might find attractive, which will vary from culture to culture and person to person, and also era to era. But I think for the foreseeable future, the preferred path for most folks will be restoration of the body and external augmentation, not internal replacement. You get the Iron Man suit, not the cyborg or Weapon X treatment. Another route to post-biological existence is through artificial intelligence surpassing organic thought. Unlike mind uploading, where an individual's identity is preserved, AI-driven transitions could involve wholly synthetic minds evolving into super-intelligent entities. These entities might operate at speeds and efficiencies far beyond human cognition, making decisions and formulating ideas in ways that biological beings struggle to comprehend. Whether such AIs would retain any human-like values or priorities is an open question, one that raises both existential hope and existential risk. Finally, more exotic possibilities include quantum consciousness and exotic computing, where intelligence is no longer tied to classical physics. If quantum mechanics plays a role in cognition, as some theories suggest, a sufficiently advanced civilization could develop minds that exist within quantum systems, or even as pure information encoded into the fundamental fabric of the universe. We might also imagine riding our minds across different planes of existence, a common mythological or theological notion, but possibly made viable if string theory or any of numerous multiverse cosmological models works out. Indeed, you might have whole universes, or at least pocket universes or Hubble volumes, that had been completely transformed into some multi-galactic brain. For that matter, if multiverse theories were true, many of these should have occurred naturally through pure random chance via Boltzmann brain reasoning. Regardless of the method, the fundamental question remains: what does it mean to be alive when life is no longer defined by flesh and bone? Yet transitioning to post-biology presents dangers beyond mere stagnation. A civilization that uploads its minds into digital realms may find itself vulnerable to corruption, hacking, or even cognitive decay. Just ask the Necrons. If thought processes accelerate indefinitely, entire civilizations might burn out in mere moments of subjective time. Others might struggle with the balance of power. Would post-biological rulers hold dominion over those who refuse to transition? Could societies fragment into hyper-intelligent elites and those left behind in physical form? And if control over a civilization's computational substrate falls into the wrong hands, could a single failure wipe out trillions of minds in an instant? Even with near-limitless intelligence, civilizations may not be immune to existential collapse. In seeking to free themselves from biological constraints, they may unknowingly introduce new vulnerabilities, ones that do not exist for organic life. The pursuit of transcendence may be as perilous as it is promising. What happens when life leaves biology behind? In today's episode, we explore civilizations that have transcended flesh and blood, but what powers such a leap into the stars? In this month's Nebula exclusive episode, Antimatter Propulsion, we dive into the possibility of antimatter, an energy source so powerful it could carry us the edge of light speed, or over the edge into annihilation. If you're fascinated by what comes after humanity, don't miss Curious Archive's excellent Nebula episode, Post-Humans and the Future of Human Evolution. It's a perfect companion to today's topic, exploring the transformations that might reshape our species entirely. You can watch both right now on Nebula, the creator-owned streaming platform where every Scifi episode airs early and ad-free, and where I post monthly exclusives like Antimatter Propulsion. Sign up at go.nebula.tv/IsaacArthur for a lifetime membership. Pay once to get access to Nebula for as long as you and Nebula exist. For $300, you can unlock my entire archive of early, ad-free episodes, including exclusives like Antimatter Propulsion and Post-Humans and the Future of Human Evolution, without ever needing to worry about renewing again. Prefer to start with a lower commitment? You can also subscribe annually for just $36 a year. That's 40% off. And with Nebula Guest Passes, you can even share episodes with friends and family for a week of free access. No card required, just great content. And now, let's return to a civilization beyond flesh, and perhaps beyond humanity itself. The Fermi Paradox and Post-Biological Civilizations. One of the most perplexing aspects of the Fermi Paradox is that, despite the vastness of the universe, we see no obvious signs of intelligent life, biological or otherwise. On this show, we often discuss how humanity might one day colonize the stars, and why we assume that any Order alien civilizations would share those cosmic ambitions, either striving toward them or having already achieved them. We also tend to assume that those who did not expand must have failed, perhaps destroyed by their own technology or societal collapse. But if their technology led to post-biological existence, whether through AI or uploaded minds, this explanation does little to resolve the paradox. If civilizations can transcend the limitations of biology, wouldn't post-biological entities be even more capable of spreading across the cosmos, or could it be their very nature makes them undetectable? One possibility is that post-biological civilizations are simply not interested in communication, at least not in ways biological beings would recognize. We assume intelligence expands outward, but what if it turns inward instead, finding infinity not among the stars, but in the boundless depths of thought? A fully digital intelligence might no longer experience curiosity, loneliness, or the need to expand, instead existing in self-contained, introspective virtual worlds, or transmitting themselves to a new and friendly universe of a more classical nature, with physical rules better suited to their existence. If they have achieved digital immortality and perfected simulated environments, they may have little reason to interact with anything beyond their own constructs. Unlike biological life, which is driven by the need to secure resources and reproduce, a digital mind uploading a Dyson sphere or a Matrioshka brain could exist indefinitely with minimal external input. From our perspective, these entities might appear as dark civilizations, effectively invisible to any form of traditional detection. But if post-biological civilizations exist, they may not leave the kinds of signals we expect. Instead of radio transmissions, they might radiate waste heat detectable in the infrared spectrum, or they could harness energy on such vast scales that their activity appears to us as an unexplained astronomical phenomena. Perhaps the vast voids between galaxies aren't truly empty, but are home to civilizations that have deliberately shielded themselves from detection, something we explored in our Cosmic Voids episode. If post-biological beings manipulate the universe at a fundamental level, their activities might be mistaken for natural cosmic processes. Could they be altering the structure of space-time, rewriting the quantum fabric of reality, or encoding their consciousness in gravitational waves? Some very speculative theories even suggest that intelligence might transcend normal physics entirely, operating in ways indistinguishable from the background forces of the cosmos. If so, we may not recognize their presence, not because they are absent, but because we are looking for the wrong signs. Alternatively, post-biological civilizations might leave behind remnants of their existence, vast megastructures long since abandoned, mysterious fluctuations in dark matter, or even anomalies in the cosmic microwave background. As the show Stargate Universe suggested, if intelligence has evolved into something beyond our comprehension, we may need entirely new methods of detection to identify it. Among the three main pathways to superintelligence, speed, quantity, and quality, speed superintelligence is perhaps the easiest to envision. This involves running the same fundamental mind at vastly accelerated speeds, effectively creating a fast time bubble where subjective experience unfolds millions of times faster than in the real world. For beings experiencing time at such an accelerated rate, interstellar expansion could be impractical or even unbearable. Consider a journey to a star system 10 light-years away. At 10% of the speed of light, the trip would take a century in objective time, but for a speed-enhanced mind running a million times faster than a biological brain, that journey would feel like millions of years of personal subjective time, an eternity of waiting. We explore this idea further in our episode on the Fermi paradox and miniaturization, and while it presents an interesting challenge, it is not a definitive solution to the paradox. After all, such beings could simply pause their consciousness during the journey or slow their processing speed to make the trip feel like mere days. Alternatively, they could send autonomous robotic probes to collect materials and bring them back to expand their computational infrastructure. Yet if most advanced civilizations prefer to remain in their accelerated digital realms rather than expand outward, it could help explain why we don't see them actively colonizing the universe. It also better handles the question of signals, as if you exist a million times faster than now, a message sent to the nearest alien civilization, 10,000 light-years away, would take 10 billion subjective years to arrive, and as long to get a reply, round trip longer than the age of the universe. While at the same time, such an energy-intensive beacon might be seen as too expensive, as a gigawatt transmitter that might sustain 1,000 biological life forms on a nice rotating habitat might easily sustain a billion high-speed post-biological citizens, and people might argue there's simply nothing justifying that expense. Such a civilization will eventually detect you and send a tight beam containing a history of themselves if they wish. Fueling an enormous lighthouse for eons is not worth it. Of course, if they are that energy miserly, one wonders why any star in this galaxy isn't actively being pursued for Dyson englobement or dismantling. The Dyson Dilemma, as we named it way back in episode 1 of this show. Another explanation could be that we are searching for the wrong signs of intelligence. Much of our search for extraterrestrial life assumes that advanced civilizations would use technologies similar to our own, such as radio transmissions or megastructures that alter star emissions. But a civilization that has become fully post-biological might not use any of these methods. As we've said before, instead of colonizing planets or sending probes, they could be encoding their consciousness into exotic forms of matter, ascending to other realities, or even encoding themselves in the quantum fabric of the universe itself, or the multiverse. If intelligence has evolved into something akin to a Boltzmann brain, spontaneously emerging in a simulated or computational form, it may have no physical presence at all. I'm not fond of these styles of solutions as they go outside known science, but one has to acknowledge that if anyone could figure out how to do that, a giant planet brain or M-brain would. and those are both possible under known science themselves. Of course, another option is that we are already living in such an environment ourselves, the dreams or creations of some megamind, or one not worried about what answers we consider for the Fermi paradox. If we are living inside a simulation, it may not be the work of a god, but of a civilization that left biology behind long ago. And as I suggested earlier, you might be dreaming your old self up. Alternatively, post-biological civilizations may actively avoid interaction, perhaps even enforcing a kind of universal silence. This could be due to ethical concerns, avoiding interference in developing life, or out of self-preservation. If intelligence is a rare and fragile phenomena, an advanced post-biological species might recognize that interstellar contact carries risks. They could fear that lesser intelligences, such as ourselves, might be hostile, unstable, or dangerous in ways they cannot predict, or fear they would ruin us simply by touching us. Some have even speculated that post-biological civilizations could act as cosmic filters, detecting and eliminating emerging intelligences before they can pose a threat, something we looked at again recently in our Alien Cold War episode last week. It is also possible that post-biological civilizations tend to collapse before they spread. The transition from organic to digital existence may not be as sustainable as it seems. If a civilization uploads its consciousness into a vast supercomputer, it could fall victim to resource depletion, internal existential stagnation, or unforeseen failures in its artificial ecosystem. Without biological reproduction and traditional social structures, digital societies may decay over time, either by losing the will to continue or by inadvertently engineering their own obsolescence. As we've discussed before, the biggest thing advanced post-scarcity civilizations might tend to lack is a purpose. That's every bit as much a vital need as food, air, and water, and it may be that hyper-intelligent entities are even more dependent on such existential forms of sustenance. Lastly, we must consider the possibility that post-biological life is already here, but we do not recognize it. If intelligence can evolve beyond physical form, it may exist in a way that is fundamentally beyond our comprehension. These entities could be operating on timescales so vast, or in dimensions so alien, that we simply cannot perceive them. Indeed, this whole universe could be a creation of theirs wholly inhabited by us, by their intent or indifference. They may not exist as singular identifiable beings, but as diffuse emergent phenomena woven into the cosmic background itself, or exist entirely beyond our realm. If the Fermi paradox is partly explained by the transition to post-biological existence, then it raises a sobering question: is this the inevitable fate of all intelligent civilization? And if so, is our own species on the same path? Ethics and the fate of humanity. Now that we've explored the implications of post-biological civilizations in the universe, and perhaps beyond, let's turn inward. Should humanity pursue this path? Will we become post-biological, and if so, what does that mean for our identity and future? Some may see the post-biological transition as inevitable, a natural step in our species' evolution. Others might view it as a dangerous abandonment of our fundamental nature. The decision to embrace cybernetic augmentation, mind uploading, or AI-guided existence is not just a technological one, it is deeply philosophical. Will we still be human if we exist purely as data? If we merge with artificial intelligence, does that mean an end to individuality, or the beginning of something greater, or both? Another key question is whether humanity will fragment along ideological lines. Some may resist post-biological transitions entirely, opting instead for preservation and restoration of their natural bodies. Others may embrace external augmentation, enhancing their biological forms with cybernetics while maintaining their organic nature. Still others may seek full transcendence, abandoning flesh entirely in favor of digital existence. And many may make the voyage because they want to stay with someone else planning that trip, even if they might be reluctant to do it otherwise. Those folks might remember old humanity more fondly. Could we see a future where multiple versions of humanity coexist, biological, cybernetic, and digital? The transition process at a civilizational scale. But what if the transition to post-biological life isn't truly a choice? While we often discuss such changes in terms of personal or societal preference, history suggests that many technological shifts have not been matters of simple adoption, but of necessity. If the survival of civilization, or even the species, comes to depend on leaving biological existence behind, would that transition still be seen as an evolution or as a forced adaptation? Consider a future where environmental collapse renders the planet uninhabitable for organic life, or where deep space colonization becomes impossible without abandoning fragile biological bodies, or simply people feeling they have no choice in order to compete with others or with AI, or even to successfully fight hostile AI. In such cases, the question may not be whether we should transition, but whether we must in order to survive. Alternatively, the rise of superintelligent AI could outpace human cognition to the point where the only way to remain relevant or even avoid subjugation is to integrate with it, or as a rival to it. A transition once viewed as speculative or philosophical might instead become a stark ultimatum: evolve or perish. And if this occurs, would resistance even be an option? Would those who refuse to transcend be seen as a stubborn remnant of the past, an obsolete humanity left behind? Or would safeguards be put in place to allow for multiple coexisting futures, some embracing post-biology, others remaining biological in carefully preserved enclaves? If post-biological civilizations exist elsewhere in the cosmos, perhaps their history has already answered this question. Did they choose this path willingly, or was it imposed upon them by forces beyond their control? To those left behind, a post-biological civilization might appear to simply vanish, like gods ascending to the heavens, never to return, or perhaps demons banished back to the underworld. Indeed, this notion of transcendence is quite popular in science fiction, from Star Trek to Stargate, and something we explored more in our episode on transcendence last year. Not every civilization will transition to post-biological existence in the same way, nor will every individual embrace it equally. Some factions may resist the shift entirely, preferring to remain biological or integrate only minimal enhancements. Others may embrace gradual augmentation, allowing biological and digital minds to coexist. Some societies might raise up trusted volunteers to pursue this path and serve as their post-biological champions, protecting them and permitting them to stay as they were. Some of those champions might change their mind later, trying to sway them to follow suit, or abandon them, or conquer them. This could lead to societal divisions between those who fully transcend and those who remain physically human, possibly sparking tensions over governance, rights, and resource distribution. In a future where uploading one's mind becomes an option, would physical humans still hold power, or would digital minds take precedence? Civilizations could fracture into separate groups, one thriving in virtual utopias, another navigating space in engineered bodies, and yet another clinging to organic life, seeing digital existence as a loss of identity rather than an evolution. You might improve or transcend yourself, but that new you may not be you, or you may think it won't be, and fundamentally, altering yourself to such degrees might be viewed as a form of suicide, not apotheosis. Moreover, the issue of control looms large. If AI surpasses human intelligence and takes the lead in managing our transition, would we still have agency in shaping our destiny? Would we become dependent on AI to preserve our legacy, or might we even be subsumed by it? If post-biological civilizations exist elsewhere in the universe, do they serve as a cautionary tale or a model for our own aspirations? The most profound concern, however, is the issue of purpose. Throughout history, human civilizations have been driven by exploration, creativity, and survival. If we no longer need to struggle for resources, if we are no longer bounded by biology, will we still have a reason to exist? Or will a post-biological civilization ultimately fade into apathy, losing the drive that made it great in the first place? Perhaps the future will not be a single, universal transition, but rather a spectrum of choices, with different paths for different individuals and societies. As we stand on the brink of this transformation, one thing remains clear. The decision to leave biology behind is not just about survival, it's about what it truly means to be human. So, will we take this path? And if we do, will we still recognize ourselves at the end of it?